A lot of things happened today. This is all about election interference. This is all Biden-run things, meaning Biden and his thugs, because I don't know if he knows he's alive. I respect the appellate division for substantially reducing that ridiculous amount of money that was put on by a corrupt judge named Engoron. He ought to be looked at, seriously looked at, especially what he did with valuations. He's the one, he's a fraudulent valuator.
Yes, the fraudulent valuator. He put that on his LinkedIn, that judge did. That was Donald Trump, who surprisingly had a good day, besides his mood there, because today was the day that he had to pony up $464 million in bond that includes an appeal for his civil fraud case that he was found guilty of. And he didn't have to pony that money up, no. In fact, at the 11th hour, an appellate court saved his behind and he has to post only a fraction of that. So let's look at it. This appellate division, First Department, said that Trump can post bond in the amount of $175 million to cover the judgment. Again, as opposed to $464 million. Trump scored a roughly 60% discount on the amount of cash he'll need to pony up to avoid having his assets seized by the state of New York, an outcome one legal expert said was highly unusual. But is that legal expert wealthy beyond his wildest imaginations, and was he president? Probably not. Is he even a he? So Trump also not only has this severely reduced bond, but he's got 10 extra days. Today was the day. It was like, everyone's like, all right, what do they season first? Where are we going? Where are we going? We doing Mar-a-Lago? We doing Trump Tower? Nope, he's got 10 more days and it seems like he does have the money. He was gracious, however, insofar as Trump can be gracious, and said, I greatly respect the decision of the appellate division and I'll post either $175 million in cash or bonds or security or whatever's like necessary very quickly within 10 days. And I thank the appellate division for acting quickly. Because I have affluenza, which means I didn't know I couldn't do that, officer.
A lot of mainstream media don't give you honest news. We do, you know why? Because of you. Paid membership on YouTube makes all the difference. Hit the join button below and you become the hero that sustains us.
A source close to Trump said, quote, we got what we wanted. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot more, but just some, I think we need to not gloss over just how je ne sais authoritarian Trump also sounded in that press conference. Like, he needs to be looked at, this judge. Like, not only am I gonna take this W, like I got off with 60% discount, but we're going for more. Why don't we look at this judge if and when I am reelected?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the Trump MO from the very beginning, right? This idea that from the very beginning of his life as a presidential candidate, this idea that if you're not, on your knees, groveling, kowtowing to him, you're a problem, you're a threat, you're corrupt, you're evil, you're a deep state, you're whatever. And that's generally how he operates around people who don't just bow down to him and do whatever he wants. So the idea that he would call this judge corrupt for doing his job is not surprising. And then, quite hilariously, and you mentioned this, we don't normally get gracious Trump where he's like outwardly thanking this appellate judge, which to me just means he was having trouble coming up with these funds, and he felt very relieved that the amount of money for this bond was, significantly lowered.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that he won't have to eventually, should the appeal fail, pay the rest of what he is owed. Again, that was calculated based on what he stole off the taxpayers of New York by lying about how great his assets were and how much they were worth and whatnot. But again, this buys him more time, and it buys him that time with a lot less money. The question though remains, as we talked about last week, billionaires don't seem like they want to help him out. Maybe they will now that the price tag has been reduced, but he was also directly asked something that his lawyer, Alina Habba, was asked, which is, are you gonna ask a foreign government for this money? And here's what he had to say.
Would you ever accept money from a foreign government to pay the bond or your fines or?
No, I don't. do that. I think you'd be allowed to, possibly. I don't know. I mean, if you go borrow from a big bank, many of the banks are outside of this. As you know, the biggest banks, frankly, are outside of our country. So you could do that, but I don't need to borrow money. I have a lot of money. I built a great company.
Which one? Which company? Okay, so there he is, and Woz, this is an answer he does a lot, which is like, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't need to, but it wouldn't be wrong if I did. It wouldn't be wrong. There's nothing wrong with that.
The slickness of that answer is actually a bit underrated. The idea is like, no, I'm good, but however, like it's not illegal. If somebody were to do that, there'd be nothing wrong with it. And as you know, Deutsche Bank, HSBC, there's a lot of foreign banks, Barclays, like there's a lot of.
He just starts to name them
in America. Like you could easily do that. That was actually kind of funny, but it's also true. Like a lot of these financial institutions are multinational, in fact, right? And so, I mean, there's something to that. It's just a very slick answer on the part of 45 there.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one he gives all the time, and it's like lulling the American people into the idea that accepting money from a foreign government is like completely fine, even though he did while he was in office. And when he was on the campaign trail in 2016 and 2015, and like, who cares? So China and Saudi Arabia gave me a bunch of money. So I'm not compromised in any way. America first. It's wild, but yeah, he massages the brains of the MAGA base into believing that all of this is A-okay. I'm pissed. I'm just gonna be 100. I'm pissed that he got this reduced. Of course he did. There are people currently languishing in jail who have far lesser penalties that they have to pay. They can't come up with that money. Most Americans can't afford a $400 unexpected expense. So great, cool. We have a justice system indeed.
Thanks for watching the video, guys. We also love it if you hit the join button below because that makes you a member, and members allow us to be independent, honest. We can be as progressive as we want, no corporate media influence, and that's all because of you guys. We love doing the show with our members. Hit the join button, become one of the Young Turks.